Why?
Why?
If you have T-Mobile 5G home internet, you might be hearing this
Why?
a lot.
Why?
Every time your internet slows down during the busiest hours.
Why?
Why?
Because your network gives priority to cell phone users.
Why?
Good question. Why not switch to Cox Internet with 2 times faster download speeds than T-Mobile 5G home internet during peak hours?
Okay.
Stop the whys and visit cox.com/5G home for details. T-Mobile prioritizes certain T-Mobile phone users over home internet users during times of congestion.
Listen up. I won't sugarcoat it. This is the longest cold, flu, and allergy season we've ever seen, but we're not alone. We've got Instacart. Sure, you may be a coughing snot faucet who just wants mommy, but you're not giving up. Not when cold medicine, fragrant herbal teas, and honey shaped like bears can be delivered through Instacart in as fast as 30 minutes. Now let's go win the sick playoffs.
Daddy, I just want my soup.
Oh, sorry, Sport. App says it'll be here in a few minutes. Instacart for the win.
All right, here we go. You broke up a fight, Scott. How are you? Welcome.
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. We're always interested to talk American League Central as we lead up to the season. Certainly, the White Sox have had a lot of changes in their roster, in their front office. How's everybody feeling about these changes and the direction now of a franchise that, from my perspective, didn't seem to have a whole lot of direction?
Yeah, they're feeling good. They're not feeling good that they lost 101 games last year, but that's out of the picture. That's done. In fact, Pedro Grifol, the manager, won't even talk about last year at this point. He said once the calendar hit January 1st, it was all full speed on to 2024. They've added some nice pieces. Some are short-term. Some are, some that they've built up their depth. Chris Getz, just look at the 2 trades he made for Aaron Bummer, who's a very talented left-handed pitcher but had a rough year last year. A great clubhouse guy. Dylan Cease, who's 2 years removed from being the Cy Young runner-up in the American League, probably didn't have quite the same numbers last year. Between those two, they added 9 players. So, that just shows you the kind of moves Chris is making. I'm not sure what, everyone says the same thing. They notice the difference in the clubhouse. They notice the difference in the attitude. They're not sure what that's going to translate to on the field, but they seem to be pretty happy with what they have right now, knowing, and they've said this probably 100 times, there's plenty of more work to be done.
So the criticism kind of the White Sox organizationally is that they're a little bit insulated. Like when Reinsdorf needed a manager a few years ago, he went to his old friend La Russa. When they needed a general manager, they stayed within the organization and went with Chris Getz. Is that a fair criticism to you? Is this an organization that you feel like needs more of an outside voice?
Well, I think Chris has done that. Chris brought in Josh Barfield. Chris brought in Gene Watson in the front office. Chris brought in Brian Bannister. He brought in, I'm totally blanking, Paul, I'm blanking on his last name, the new minor league director, and I'm just totally blanking on his last name. He was a shortstop for the Reds at one point. I can't remember his last name. But anyways.
Barry Larkin.
No, not Barry Larkin. I remember him. He's a Michigan guy. I'd never forget Barry Larkin.
Man, I know who you're talking about. Giannis?
Yeah, there we
Paul
go, Paul Giannis. My apologies to Paul, who has been nothing but great since he's come over. So I'm just getting old, so I forgot the name. And then Jin Wong they brought in from the Royals too. So they really changed the front office dynamic. And and Tony's there again. Tony is a special advisor to the GM. We have to remember that whatever the reasoning behind it, and they won the division in 21. Tony was not a healthy man in 22, and Tony is arguably at least by wins, the greatest manager in the history of the game, right? So, no, I get it. He was 76 when he started and then was not of good health in 2022. So I don't know if things are different if a different manager is in there at that point. But, I think Chris kind of knew the organization. That can be good if you have a good plan moving forward and have an idea how you want to build this. It can be bad because you were part of the 500 team that was literally, to use a Rick Hahn quote from when he was there, mired in mediocrity that whole year in 22, and then a horrible team last year, which really got 100 times worse after the trade deadline when, they started trading away, some of their main guys and just kind of not filling in the season. You don't want to demean anyone who's working, but, they weren't as good as they didn't have the talent they had before. So I think he's brought in guys who have connections to the organization. Josh Barfield, his dad is from a suburb of Chicago. He grew up going to games when his dad was, Jesse was a ball player. Brian Bannister's dad, Floyd, pitch for the 83 team that Tony La Russa managed that won the AL West. So there's some connections, but in the same sense, they haven't been here for 10, 15, 20 years like a lot of White Sox employees, so you can get a fresh perspective in there. And Tony's still there, and he's there all the time, lending his wisdom to the whole, equation.
Interesting. I didn't know Tony La Russa was still around the White Sox.
He is. I just saw him yesterday afternoon at the ballpark, as a matter of fact.
Scott Merkin, our guest from MLB.com, covers the White Sox. So anytime you embark on a kind of a rebuild like the White Sox are doing, at least a restructure, you got to be careful because you can't just deal everyone. So we know Luis Robert is a building block. Who are the other building blocks? Who are the other players on this team that you would be shocked if the White Sox ever moved them?
I would think I think you'd have to go to the younger guys. Colson Montgomery, who is, their shortstop or an infielder of the future for them. He could probably be up by May, June of this year. He's the number 9 prospect overall in MLB pipeline. Noah Schultz, who's this supremely talented left-hander. I think he's 20 years old. Guys like that. I think anyone on the Major League roster short of Luis Robert is probably, fair game. Is that the right word? That could be traded. And I think even if, the return for Luis Robert would have to literally knock Chris Getz off the chair he was sitting in or knock him to the ground if he was standing up. But I think, anyone pretty much is tradable on this team right now. But it just, requires. Look at Dylan Cease was. I wrote in a story recently that he was rumored basically after the last out of the World Series. But I was actually erroneous in that because there were rumors at the trade deadline last year that he was going to possibly be moved. So, but look what Chris did there. He held on until, he got the right offer that he wanted. He, passed on other situations that could have helped the team too, but he felt this was the best offer. And he felt that this offer now was better than waiting until going to the trade deadline with them. So we'll see what happens. He said to us on the Zoom Monday that, if it's something that's going to help the team, he's open to making more moves right now. So it's not like he's in an embargo until, May or June or something like that. If something hits that works, they'll make the move. So I think it answers your question, more the young guys, the young controllable guys. But I think aside from Luis Robert, anyone is pretty much available. And even the humongous, immense talent return for him would make that possible too.
I was going to ask you if the White Sox had enough starting pitching to get through the season, but, now that Cease has been traded, I kind of lightheartedly asked, do they have enough starting pitching to get to the season? Their rotation's kind of being still sorted out, isn't it?
Yeah, we did. You had me on at the right time because just before I came to talk to you, they announced Garrett Crochet is going to be the opening day starter, which I think is kind of an interesting and inspired decision by them. This is nothing against Eric Fetty and Mike Soroka, who were probably in the running for opening day start too. But Garrett's the guy with the White Sox connection. He's been there 3 years. He's looked phenomenal making the change from, the bullpen to starting pitcher. They're going to have to watch him, of course, during the year because he's never thrown more than 54 innings in a season. But he's the new opening day starter. And they have some young guys behind. They have Fetty, they have Soroka, they have Chris Flexen. Nick Nastrini has been great in camp. Chad Kuhl is here. Jake Woodford. So there's some options. And I think that fifth starter might end up being a starter/reliever at the beginning because, as Pedro pointed out to us yesterday, they won't have to use the fifth starter until April 6th, I believe.
All right, before we let you go, we're talking with Scott Merkin from MLB.com. This is one of the most interesting divisions because nobody's quite sure outside of the White Sox. I don't think they're in any position to contend yet. But the other 4 teams maybe are. Who do you like of the Guardians, Royals, Twins, and Tigers?
You always look at the Guardians and say, well, they've had a bunch of injuries already in the bullpen in spring training. And I just saw that Duran is starting on the IL for Minnesota. And there's always seems to be something that AL Central, right? But the thing to remember about that division is even if the division is competitive all year long, and Minnesota hovered around 500, at one point was under 500 in leading division last year. The last 3 teams that have won the division, which would be the Sox, the Guardians, and the Twins, had 93, 92, and 87 wins. So you can't sneak in being like an 82-win team. You got to be decent. I would say it's still the Twins, although Duran is a depending on how long he's out for, is probably not too long, but that's a significant drop back. And I think keep an eye on the Tigers. We've seen this before where they finished strong, where it didn't really kind of matter a huge amount because they weren't going to win the division. And then you think they're ready to take the step, and they don't. But they have a good young talent pool themselves there. So I think Detroit, and I think Kansas City's on the rise too. So it should be very interesting. Should be very interesting to see how it plays out. I'll stick with the Twins right now, but I think the Tigers could be a challenger.
I think the one team that's kind of establishing itself as a potential power is the Detroit Tigers. Do you agree with me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think, Torkelson really kind of hit his stride last year. Riley Green is outstanding. It just depends on how these young pitchers come back from injury and develop. I think Tarek Skubal is a bona fide ace, but it's the guys behind him that are going to make it. I thought Maeda was a nice signing for them, so it'll be interesting to see how they take the step up from a pretty good finish to the 23 season.
My son, the Guardians fan, rolled his eyes at that comment, but I'm going to stick by it.
It's nothing personal.
So before you go, have you seen the Eagles on their final farewell concert?
Believe it or not,
Final
I did
goodbye.
not. They were in Chicago the weekend of the 8th and 9th, and I could not get back from Arizona for that. I've seen them 15 times, but I did not get to see the farewell. But I have read reports that they're going to be at the Sphere, as the house show at the Sphere in Las Vegas in October, November. So I'm going to start putting aside money already for that one, because I'm sure that's not going to be a cheap ticket.
That is amazing. I hadn't heard that. So thank you, Scott. We always appreciate you coming on with us.
Sure, guys, anytime. Good talking to you.
Why?
Why?
If you have T-Mobile 5G home internet, you might be hearing this
Why?
a lot.
Why?
Every time your internet slows down during the busiest hours.
Why?
Why?
Because your network gives priority to cell phone users.
Why?
Good question. Why not switch to Cox Internet with 2 times faster download speeds than T-Mobile 5G home internet during peak hours?
Okay.
Stop the whys and visit cox.com/5G home for details. T-Mobile prioritizes certain T-Mobile phone users over home internet users during times of congestion.
Celebrate and save at Ashley's Anniversary Sale. With Hot Buys, your choice of colors starting at just $3.99. Ashley Sleep mattresses starting at $2.50. Plus, receive a free adjustable base with select mattress purchases. And shop top mattress brands like Stearns & Foster, Tempur-Pedic, Purple, and Beautyrest Black with 60-month special financing. Only at Ashley. Subject to credit approval. No minimum purchase required. Minimum monthly payment, down payment, tax, and delivery may be required. See store for details.
The national sales event is on at your Toyota dealer, making now the perfect time to get a great deal on a dependable new car. Like a legendary Camry, built for performance and available with all-wheel drive, you can count on your new Camry to get anywhere you need to go. And with available features like heated seats and a multimedia touchscreen, you can stay connected in comfort and style. Or check out an affordable and reliable Corolla with a trim for every lifestyle, from the hip and agile sedan to the sporty hatchback. There's a dependable Corolla built just for you. Plus, both Camrys and Corollas are available in hybrid models, so no matter your style, you can drive efficiently and affordably. And right now, your local Toyota dealer has more vehicles in stock and is making delivery on new vehicles almost every day. So visit your local Toyota dealer. And check out amazing national sales event deals on Camrys, Corollas, and more when you visit buyatoyota.com. Offers end April 1st. Toyota, let's go places.